everyone, my name is Reggie and welcome to my channel. Today I will be sharing with you some tips to bring your reading to the next level and read more this year. So these tips will be able to help you if you're already an avid reader or if you're looking to make this a goal for the new year. If you're new to my channel, I definitely recommend hitting that subscribe button and the bell notification. I post new bookish videos every week. And let's get into the tips. The first thing to note is that you have to figure out what works best for you. What works best for me may not be the thing that works best for you. It's going to take some experimentation and it's definitely going to take dedication to get to the point where you're reading as many books as you want to be in the year. However, I think anyone can get there. It's just going to take some time. The next tip I'd like to share with you is to read for yourself and not for others. Caveat, this is not a tip that implies that as students you cannot do your homework, read what you have to when you have to. But when you're reading for pleasure, we're talking about reading for pleasure here. If you're reading for fun and you're not having fun, what's the point? There doesn't need to be a should be reading when you're reading for fun or for pleasure. If you're struggling getting through those classics that you think you have to read, maybe try something different. If you're a book reviewer and only reading new releases, maybe try reading some of those backlist titles that have been on your TBR for ages. If you think you have to read nonfiction books and self-help books, but you're struggling to get through them and you dread picking them up, that's a problem. You shouldn't dread reading if you're trying to read more. Not everyone's gonna like the same thing, so you shouldn't let what other people are reading or those pressures influence what you're reading, because that's really just gonna slow you down because you're not reading the books that are important and impactful to you. Jumping right off of that tip, the next thing is to make sure you know what you want to read and read what you want to read. Take your time to research the books that you're thinking about reading. Read the synopses, check reviews on Amazon and Goodreads, check booktube videos to see if anyone's talking about these books. Whatever you need to do to research this book, do it. Put the time in, read different things, discover what you don't like, what you do like. Develop your taste. This will help you so much in deciding what books to read and what books you will enjoy. When you're enjoying what you're reading, you're going to get through it faster and be more excited to pick up another book like that one. If you're already a reader and you know what kind of books you like, say fiction, YA, contemporary, go deeper with this. Know what tropes you do and do not like. Know what genres you do and do not like. Know what authors you do and do not like. This is, again, going to help you develop your reading tendencies and your reading trends, and then you'll be picking up books that you're more likely to like. You can never guarantee you're going to like every book you pick up, but if you are very aware of your tastes, you're going to be more likely to pick up books you like and enjoy and are going to be able to get through faster, read more of, etc. An example of this is, as a contemporary lover, unless I'm really in the mood for it, I'm probably not going to pick up a big, thick, chunky fantasy book because I'm not going to be able to get through it fast and it's going to take me a lot longer to read. Other side of that coin is if you're a fantasy reader because you love falling into those new and unique worlds, maybe don't pick up a contemporary when you're trying to read more books because you're not going to be interested and invested in the story like you normally are. You're going to put it down. Length doesn't matter in terms of reading more books, especially when you know your reading tastes. If you like short books, read them. If you like longer books, read those. When we talk about reading more, we're talking more about building a habit and enjoying what you're reading. If you're reading 200 really short books, but you aren't loving them, what's the point? Make sure you know what you like because you will read them faster. Unless I'm interested, I'm not going to get through a thick, chunky fantasy book. It's just not going to work for me. However, someone who loves fantasy books may be able to get through that 500-page book way faster than they could get through a 300-page contemporary because it's something they enjoy and love. It's all about knowing your taste, and it honestly can make a world of difference. Consider DNFing. DNFing stands for did not finish, and the idea behind DNFing is basically that you just put down a book that you weren't interested in or enjoying. What's so freeing and great about DNFing is you can move on to the next book, the book you will love. Again, this comes with finding your reading tastes. If you're not enjoying it, don't read it. It may feel like a failure in some ways, but it doesn't have to feel that way because one, you're reading for you and not others. So if you're reading for you and you're not liking it, why are you reading it? And two, it's just developing your taste further. You know next time you didn't like this book and you hopefully know why. I didn't like their writing style or I didn't like this trope, and now you can avoid those things in the future. Developed your taste and will be able to pick up more books that you'll like in the future. It's all connected. Also know DNFing doesn't have to be permanent. Reading is such a personal experience and can be so affected by things that are happening in your life and your outside environment. So something that's happening in your life or something that's happening in the world, maybe the room you're in is really loud, can really affect how you take in that story. So maybe there's nothing wrong with the book and you'll still really enjoy it at a later time. There's nothing wrong with saying not now, maybe later. The next tip is to make time for reading. As an avid reader who reads a lot of books every year, one of the most annoying things is when someone will come up and find out that I'm a reader and how many books I read, and they're like, oh, that's so cool. I wish that I could read as many books as you. I just don't have the time. You make the time for the things that are important for you. If you want to go to the gym every day, you'll go. If you want to binge that TV show, you'll figure out when you can fit it in. If you want to read more books, you'll figure out how. I work 60 hours a week. I have a husband that I have to spend time with and a dog I walk every day. I have adult responsibilities, and I still manage to read over 90 books every year for the last 4 years. It's because I prioritize reading. I don't watch a ton of movies or TV shows, but I still watch TV and movies. It's not like I've cut it out completely or anything. I just know that instead of watching what I won't love of a TV show, I'd rather spend that time reading a book. That's the entertainment I enjoy most, and so I prioritize it. I find when I can do it, I do it. It doesn't mean I have more time than anyone else. It just means I've prioritized it. I've put the thought and time into reading. This tip is like a life tip. If you want to do something, if you really want to do it, you'll figure it out how to make it work. Time isn't the problem. It's your priorities that you have to figure out how to sort. Audiobooks. That's a great tip for reading more. The time I discovered audiobooks was a time when I couldn't read any other way, and I was sorely lacking the amount of books I was reading. I picked up an audiobook and it changed my reading game forever. I will listen to audiobooks when I'm driving to work, when I'm walking my dog, when I'm at the gym, when I'm cleaning my room, when I'm cleaning my house, when I'm doing anything at work that can be done while multitasking. So if I'm working on a special project, then I will use that time, listen to an audiobook. And audiobooks are wonderful. In a lot of ways, they can be even better than reading a book because, one, you can multitask. Two, a lot of audiobooks are so heavily and beautifully produced now that you have voice actors doing incredible things and cast of characters and special effects that really add to the story, and it can make a story really fun and different. It's a fun, unique experience. But maybe audiobooks aren't it for you, but try other forms of books. eBooks are great. I love having books on my phone because then they're always with me. A tip a lot of people will tell you is to always have a book with you, and I think that's a helpful tip, but it doesn't always work for people. But you're always going to have your phone with you, so if you can get into eBooks even a little bit, and you don't have to think that eBooks or audiobooks are expensive. Most libraries have multiple options between Overdrive, the new Overdrive app, which is called Libby, and Hoopla. There's also cheap subscription services with Kindle Unlimited and Scribd. There's so many accessible ways to get books on your phone. My next tip is to get excited about books. Get excited about reading. Once you're excited and have a passion for this, it's going to be so much easier to read more. I've always been a reader, but the year I discovered BookTube, I went from reading 30 books a year to making a goal to read 52 books in a year. And that year I made a goal to read 52 books in a year, I read 90 books in a year. And since that year, I haven't read less than 90 books. If you always have a running list, even if it's just 4 books that you want to read next, you're always going to be excited for something because you're going to have those 4 books next that you're looking forward to reading. Don't just put 4 books that you think you should read next. Like I said earlier in this video, do the research, figure out what books you're going to be excited for, add them to that list, and then when you finish a book and you don't know what to pick up next, you have those 4 and you're like, yes, I wanted to read that. I'm excited to read that, and I will. I definitely recommend scrolling through Goodreads or going to your bookstore, going to your library, just walking the shelves and just reading the descriptions, the summaries, whether you check out that book or purchase that book or not, whether you just add that book to a list on your phone. If you're already a reader, you already have this list, then maybe the problem is that your list is too big. This can definitely go both ways. So in that case, if you're a reader who has so many books that you're overwhelmed by how many books you want to read, that's me. What I recommend doing to read more is concentrating that list down. Make 5 or 10 books at the top of your list that you're so excited to read next. Figure out what they are. Put them in the notes app on your phone or on a post-it note and put it up for yourself. And that way, next time you go to your bookshelf to pick up a book, you know what's at the top of your TBR and you're like, oh yeah, I am so excited to read that book. Of course, for mood readers, this may not always work, but I'm pretty sure if you have 10 books that you are incredibly excited for, on a post-it note, at least one of them will be the one that you're going to read next. And when you always have that feeling of excited for the next book you're going to read, you're going to pick up a book quicker and read more. So the next tip is really where that idea of figuring out what works for you and what works for me might not work for you idea really comes into play. So I'm going to give you 2 tips in one. Basically, it's going to be to either try Nook reading or to try batch reading. And so what I do a lot is Nook reading. I call this Nook reading. I don't think there's an actual name for this, but what I do is I call it Nook reading because I read in little nooks and crannies in time that I have available. So say I'm at Starbucks, I'm going to pull out my phone and read an ebook in line until I get to place my order and while I'm waiting to pick up my drink. I also like to multitask with my reading, so like I said, if I have to clean or go somewhere that requires driving and I have the ability to do so, I'll definitely listen to an audiobook. If I have to wait for an appointment or it's like 10 minutes before I have to leave the house for something and I don't have anything else that I absolutely have to do, I'll just sit down and read. In those little nooks and crannies of time will really add up, and you'll be surprised how many pages and how many books you can get through by just reading in nooks and crannies of time you have available. Instead of scrolling through social media for those 5 minutes before you leave your house, read a chapter of a book. But for some people, that kind of idea is really annoying. They want to really immerse themselves in the story, and that kind of Nook reading isn't going to work for them. In that case, I recommend trying a batch reading, finding 30 minutes at least, maybe an hour that you can just sit down and devote to reading. You may have to schedule this out. You may have to wake up earlier in the morning or go to sleep earlier at night so you can fit it in before you fall asleep. Maybe you have to leave your house early and arrive at school or work early so you can spend that time that you're waiting for your activity to start with reading. Both of these are going to require work for them to become habits, because batch reading is going to require you planning it out so you can figure out when you can find a large piece of time to devote to reading, and that may involve, like I said, getting up earlier, getting to somewhere earlier so that you can sit down and read. On the other hand, Nook reading is really training yourself to be in the habit of finding those pockets of time and devoting them to reading instead of something else you may do. And changing that switch in your brain can often be hard. Like I said, what works for one person won't work for everyone. You're really gonna have to try this one out, test out, see what works for you. I also definitely recommend breaking reading up into smaller tasks. So just like any to-do or scary item on a list, if you break something down into manageable chunks, it's so much easier to tackle. Say you have a 500-page book that you want to read in 7 days. Let's do some quick math, figure out how many pages you have to read a day, and then when you find that marker, you, 1, have a goal to reach. 2, that's so much easier to obtain, and 2, it keeps you accountable to keep on track with that goal. It's so much easier to read this chunk of pages instead of thinking I have to read this whole book by the end of the week. And when you start that momentum and keep that momentum, that's when your reading is really going to flourish. My last and most important tip is to don't stress about reading more. When you're stressed about it, it takes the fun out of reading, and when reading isn't fun for you, you're probably not going to elect to do it in your free time. That's literally going to do the opposite of making reading fun and making you read more books, is stressing about how many books you're reading. So you, again, have to figure out what that is for you. If setting a goal on Goodreads is going to stress you out, don't do it. If figuring out how many books you want to read this year is going to stress you out, don't do it. If scheduling books and times to read is going to stress you out, don't do it. Because if the idea of reading is stressful and it's not fun, then you're not going to read more because you're not going to want to do it. Goals are fun, goals are great, but no, they're not everything. If you're just reading a few books, you're already reading, and that means you're already doing great. So what are your best tips for reading more books? If you have some that I didn't mention, go ahead and comment them down below. And if you're looking for more tips yourself, go down to those comments. I bet there will be some good ones down there. Thank you so much for watching this video and for joining me today. I'll see you next time. Bye.